Hi, hello, welcome to our last Masterclass Monday of 2023. I am your host. I don't know how else to say that. My name is Sarah Pizzani. I am a Master Herbalist, and I've been doing these Masterclass Mondays live in our group, the Herb Powered Pregnancy on Facebook. We cover all things preconception through postpartum. That's my jam. That's where I want to help ladies and families the most. I feel like there is so much lacking here in terms of information and empowerment. It's changing, and that's great. But also with that change, there is just this flood of information that's conflicting. It's confusing. I want to help break it down for you. So we've been doing these live master classes. Like I said, this is the last one of this year. And today we are going to talk about how to have a good balance of calcium in your body with just herbs and plants. Right? Oh my gosh. We're not talking about raw milk. Oh, I'm going to talk about raw milk. I'm going to talk a lot about raw milk. So stay tuned. Just making sure that we are live in the group. If you can see me, please comment. Those of you on Facebook watching the replay, please write #replay in the comments. Please feel free to comment any big ahas that you're having. Feel free to ask questions in the comments or send them directly to me on Messenger if you would rather keep them private. And if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome, and please come join us in the group. Like I said, I'm not doing any more master classes this year, but I am available in the group, and I'm going to be putting little snippets of additional herbal and nutritional and lifestyle tips for mamas in their childbearing year. Okay, I'm trying to stop all these little extra beeps here. Okay, we are muted. Again, if you're watching, please say something in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from. Hi, Rebecca. All right, and feel free to ask questions as we go. I'm going to give a little bit of a short lecture and then open it up for questions. But if you have a question, go ahead and write it, and I will come look at it when the time is right. Okay, so there is so much to talk about in terms of calcium. My personal experience is that there is a lot of osteoporosis in my family line. And so this has been a very big focus for me on my natural health journey. This has been one of my top concerns whenever I'm, looking to learn something new about nutrition, about herbs, about other modalities, is how can I make sure that I'm not ending up with frequent hip and rib fractures and all that jazz that's not very fun. And that funny little sound, I live in a travel trailer for now. We're attempting to build a small house for this winter, finally, but my water filter does like run the pump every few seconds. So I hope that's not too distracting. I needed to be plugged in today, so I am inside in the trailer. Welcome to my home. Okay, just double checking that. Yeah, we are recording, and okie dokie. Wish I could just get rid of like all the notifications except for this thing, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. Okay. So let's dive in, shall we? Okay. So if you have been with me for any length of time, you'll know that I have had this journey from a pretty standard lifestyle, pretty standard diet in terms of like the American way. And then I had a lot of health concerns show up. Instead of, it used to be like the midlife crisis. For me, it was like the in my 20s crisis. Suddenly, like my body was falling apart. And no one could really tell me why and or what to do about it, other than, well, take this pill, it'll solve all your problems. And even though I was, raised very conventionally, that didn't sit right with me. I wanted, because I was an engineer. I was about solving problems. I was about looking at processes that made products and figuring out where they were going wrong and how to fix them, that were, you know, going wrong in terms of we're ending up with a defective product for some reason, in some way. And so when I use that same, you know, engineer analysis of what's going on in my body that is causing it to just be falling apart when I should be in the prime of my life, I was like, I want to understand. I want to understand where the breakdown is, and I want to understand what to do about it. I don't want to put a mask on it. I don't want to, sorry, that means something new over the last 3 years. But what I mean is, I don't want to just cover it up. I don't want to just say, be quiet. I don't need to hear that signal. I want to actually fix it. Okay. It's the same way I would look at a piece of equipment or a line of equipment in a manufacturing plant. I don't want to just like stuff the problem out of the way. I want to fix it, because that's how you get that sustainable fix, that fix that lasts and that leads to ongoing, well-working things, whether it's a machinery line or my body, right? And of course, machinery doesn't have anywhere near the complexity that our bodies have and that our whole souls have, right? Like machinery doesn't need to worry about their feelings or their thoughts or their energy centers. Like it's it's a lot simpler. Anyway, so I began this journey of learning what I could, cleaning up my diet, and tried lots of different diets. And ultimately, I studied at Dr. Christopher's School of Natural Healing, and I highly recommend it. It's so awesome. Half of my Master Herbalist program was in nutrition. Lots of people find me and they're like, oh, well, I'm working with a nutritionist, and I'm going to ask my nutritionist about that. Half my education is in nutrition. Okay. And the reason for that is that you can't out-herb a bad diet, and you can't out-herb a destructive lifestyle. All right. So when we put all of those elements together, the herbs, the nutrition, and the lifestyle, they can all start working synergistically instead of one working really hard to try to overcome the other. It's an uphill battle. Sometimes, right? Sometimes if someone says, oh, you've got depression, take some St. John's wort, sometimes you will feel better. Wonderful, great. But it's probably not going to last if you're not addressing the other reasons for that depression, whether it's nutrition, lifestyle, your emotions, your thoughts, etc. So we need to look at the whole picture. Okay, so let's dive into calcium. So if any of you have been down the Weston A. Price rabbit hole, like I did for several years, I appreciated what I learned from that journey, because it taught me that it's not just about taking a calcium pill. It's also about taking vitamin D and vitamin K2. Now, I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just describing what I learned from that system, okay? So the reason for that is when we take calcium into the body, it needs that vitamin D, it needs that K2, it needs these other cofactors and complementary compounds, for our bodies to take it in and put it where it needs to go. Tell me in the comments if you know anybody, who has or has had osteoporosis. They take tons of calcium and they still have osteoporosis, and now they have bone spurs. So the calcium is being taken in, but it's not being properly assimilated by the body. The body's like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm going to stick it in the heel. I'm going to stick it somewhere weak. I'm going to deposit it somewhere because I can't get it out and I can't put it in the bones. Now, the theory is that if you are now taking the right ratios and dosages of your vitamin D and your vitamin K2, that those are going to inform the body what to do with that calcium. It's going to help the body actually absorb it. Okay, that's the theory. And so now many doctors are recommending, adding that vitamin D and that K2 to your calcium supplementation. If you know anyone who has done that, tell me how it's gone for them. My personal experience was that it helped for a little bit, and then I actually ended up with the worst dental health of my life, and other problems. So for me, that didn't solve my calcium problems. Now, the better way to do that is with real foods, right? And that's why they're big on the raw milk and the raw cream and the beef liver and the tallow and the bone broth and all of this, right? The goal of all of that is to provide these nutrients, including phosphorus as well, that are in the right ratios to build bone health. That's the theory. Again, I did that. It helped for a little bit, and then it didn't. So there is, I need to see my window so I can show you this book. So here is one of the books was actually required reading in my program, is Eat to Live by Dr. Joel Fuhrman. He is an MD. He was an elite athlete. He was an Olympic athlete. And he was able to do so on a fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds and legumes diet. Okay. Essentially whole foods, plant-based. And so this book, it actually talks a lot about, arguing for eating this way in terms of weight loss and heart health, which is fair. My personal opinion is that if you feel like you need to lose weight, let's get you healthier, let's get you cleansed, let's get you nourished, and you will naturally come to your body's ideal weight. And that's what I've seen happen as well. But anyway, if you do want to, so I don't focus on talking about weight loss, but if you do want to read about weight loss using wholesome foods, this is a good book for it. But I wanted to come into where he talks about the correlation between calcium intake and osteoporosis. And so he is mainly referencing a study called the China study, which I don't have time to get into right here, but look it up, read about it. It's super cool. Okay. It's looking at real people and traditional diets, kind of like Weston A. Price did, but he sort of left some things out to keep it simple. I'm going to get a lot of hate on this video. Okay. Anyways, so the question that he poses here is, are dairy foods protecting us from osteoporosis? And a long story short, there actually is no evidence suggesting that what we all grew up being told, at least in the United States, of drink your milk and that will give you good bone health. There is actually no evidence for it. And on the contrary, is there evidence that dairy intake may actually lead to more hip fractures, more osteoporosis? Yeah. So it's interesting. So when they look at countries that have a very high calcium intake from dairy sources, the United States is obviously one of the big ones. Now, granted, is most of that dairy pasteurized, homogenized from cows in a concentrated animal feeding unit? Yeah. And is that bad for you no matter what? Yeah. Is raw milk better than that? Yeah. But still, let's keep talking about this. Okay. So the countries that have the highest dairy intake actually have the most osteoporosis, and vice versa. So that is something to think about. One of the things that he goes into is the calcium balance. So of what you consume that contains calcium, there's an amount that's absorbed, there's an amount that is excreted, and there's an amount that is, and then, basically you do ingested, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So you do absorbed minus excreted, and that's the amount that is retained. And so if you have a negative calcium balance, that means more calcium is excreted in the urine than is absorbed through digestion. So obviously, if that's happening, then over time you are actually losing calcium, even though you think you are eating calcium foods. So what are the factors that lead to higher amounts of calcium loss in the urine? This is an interesting chart. Number one is animal protein. Someone asked me about protein last week. Do you worry about getting enough protein? I don't. I honestly don't. And go back and look at that video. That video was, I think it was called Nutrition for All Trimesters. I think so. You'll be able to find it in the guides section in Facebook, or like the one right before this one, where this one will be posted, or on YouTube. You can look for the masterclass that was right before this one. So animal protein is number one. It actually increases the excretion of calcium in the urine. Salt is another one. Now, there are some people, him included, who say you should not have any salt. I feel differently on that. I think a good sea salt, like a Redmond salt or Celtic gray salt, any kind of unrefined, unadulterated sea salt, I think can be used in reasonable amounts. Preferably, we're getting our salts from vegetables and herbs, but some amount of those salts can be very beneficial for the body. Caffeine will also cause calcium loss. Refined sugar, that's a really big one. I think lots of people understand that now. Like, I don't think that's a hard sell. If you eat a lot of sugar, it leaches calcium from your bones. So if you're going to take a high amount of calcium-rich foods and herbs, which I'm going to get a list for you in a second, but you are still eating sugar, and a lot of it, it's kind of like pouring gas into your tank, knowing there's a hole in it. Just think about this. I know it's hard, and I know you can do it because I did it, and I am a sugarholic, and I'm going to tell you more about how I did it in a little bit. Okay. Alcohol, nicotine, aluminum containing antacids, drugs such as antibiotics, steroids, thyroid hormone, and vitamin A supplements. Okay. This is his list of dietary factors that induce calcium loss in the urine. We don't want that. We want strong bones. We don't want to be just like peeing out our calcium. All right. So, but fruits and vegetables can help buffer the acid load from all the animal protein and reduce calcium loss. So even if you're not ready to, or completely disagree with totally getting rid of your animal protein sources, adding more fruits and vegetables is going to significantly help reduce that calcium loss from your animal protein. All right. So here is his list of the best foods for bones in terms of fruits and vegetables. So green vegetables, beans, tofu, sesame seeds. I have a great recipe for sesame seed milk that's really yummy. But it is in my friend's cookbook. But the base, so I don't really, I shouldn't really share it with you, but you can go buy Naked Nutrition by Amy Choate and Annie Miller. It's awesome. It was my first cookbook as I began this food journey that I've been on for over 3 years now, and it's helped me so much. But the basic idea is, as you're making any kind of nut milk, add a tablespoon or two of sesame seeds in there. You will want to strain them out. They don't get soft. Excuse me. And then you're also boosting your calcium intake with your nut milk. without adding like eggshells or something like, okay. And all of those foods that I just listed, they don't have the problems associated with dairy. Now, I believe he's more referring to with the problems of dairy, promoting the excretion of calcium in the urine. Now, we also know through Dr. Christopher's work that dairy products can be very constipating for the body, very acid forming for the body. And that is the primary reason that he recommended people avoid it, and why people saw success. Because if you don't stop eating your constipating foods, there's only so much your body can do, because it can't get rid of the trash. We got to get rid of the trash, guys. We got to keep it flowing. The other one was oranges. So we're coming up on orange season. I love getting big boxes of oranges from a farm in California. Even if they're not certified organic, find a farmer, talk to them, understand what their practices are, because sometimes they are just as good or better than certified organic, even if they didn't go to that huge expense and difficulty of certifying under that label. But so I love just getting a whole bunch of oranges, and then, we eat them in season, and they store pretty well if you have somewhere cool-ish to keep them, like an unfinished basement or a cold storage or a garage if it doesn't freeze, or, maybe you could put it in an insulated part of your garage. And so we enjoy oranges and orange juice. Now, a lot of commercial orange juice, first off, it's pasteurized, so you've already killed off a lot of the vitamin C. So then they add back in vitamin C, and they add back in calcium, and they add back in vitamin D, and they promote how it's got all this great stuff in it. But again, it's inorganic minerals that they added in instead of the original minerals that are, and vitamins that are part of that wholesome food in its wholesome and raw state. So just like our person with osteoporosis who takes a bunch of calcium still has osteoporosis and now has bone spurs, it's when we're giving our body that inorganic, I'm not talking about certification growing standards, it's inorganic in that it is not part of life, it's not part of a plant. Our bodies don't do well with that. They have to stick it somewhere, or they have to figure out how to get it out. And when they can't figure out how to get it out, they encapsulate it somewhere. We don't want that. Okay, so I think I have gone enough into this book. Now, the whole, I was talking about how the promotion of using vitamin D and vitamin K2 to enhance the absorption of calcium in the body, that does appear to be true. That is a good thing. But this is fun. This is fun. There are herbs that have vitamin D. Did you know that? Did you know that? And alfalfa is one of them. So I've talked about alfalfa in almost every one of these master classes. It's incredible. Okay. It's high in protein, it's high in vitamin D. If you are lucky enough to have some fresh alfalfa growing in your yard and you don't spray anything in your yard with harmful chemicals, chew on your alfalfa. If you've got tooth decay, it's really powerful stuff. And then using it fresh and like putting it in a smoothie is where you're going to get more of the protein. If you're just making a tea from it, you're not really going to get the protein, but you could always get alfalfa capsules anyway. And I just launched into protein again, but that vitamin D is in there. So that's really cool. So when we start to incorporate in our diet, in our nutrition plan, this high variety of fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes, and the herbs, not just for, oh, I got sick, I need chamomile tea. No, we use the herbs all the time to give us those nutrients. They are so concentrated in those nutrients, and they have a lot more of them than we realize. They are always learning about new vitamins and new minerals and things. and new compounds, and and they're like, oh, this is like the new thing that everybody needs. It was already in the plant. We just didn't discover it until now. And so think about how much more is in there that we don't even know about. And so when you have a plant like alfalfa that has all of the essential vitamins and minerals and protein and all this great stuff, and you compare it to a calcium pill made from like calcium carbonate, right? Like it's made from rocks. Do you really think that someone in a lab is smarter than God? I mean, I just don't. And so when you're getting your nutrients from a plant, or from a plant, you're getting it in its perfect form. It was designed to be taken into your body and used appropriately and used efficiently and not be difficult for your body to use. I just think it's amazing. It's so wonderful. Okay, so that's just one of them. Watercress is another one that is high in vitamin D. So Dr. Christopher has a formula called Cold Season Formula. You can get it at herbalembrace.com. And it has watercress in it, as well as I think rose hips and a few other things that are great for optimal immune health during the winter seasons, during the low sun seasons, if you are at the right latitudes. Latitudes this way. I think latitudes are this way. Anyway, let me drink some tea. All right. So I get really excited about this. All right. So that's just a little bit about vitamin D. So some other really cool herbs that are rich in calcium, amongst a whole bunch of other things, as well as silica. So I'm going to give you a list of those in a minute, but let me talk about silica for a moment. Now, am I about to tell you to go take silica pills? No. Watch all my videos again, or you would never say that. I am suggesting that we look for silica-rich herbs. Why? Okay, so I wasn't able to find the name really quick, but what we are taught in Dr. Christopher's curriculum is that someone found out that silica in the body is actually transformed into calcium. How's that for some real life alchemy? So cool. Now, as a former chemical engineer, I really want to see that process in detail, and I haven't taken the time to find it yet. So I've just gone off of, well, you know, these really smart people figured it out and it seems to be working. So if you ever find that process like written out in like equations and everything, send it to me, please. I would love to take a look at it. But I don't really have a reason not to believe this is true, because of the results of using the herbs over these many, many years. And so when we have a silica-rich herb, that tends to be an herb that is, what's the word? Like, it's not a soft leafy thing per se. It's more of a kind of rigid, kind of crystalline, rigid structure. And so those, so horsetail is pretty much the #1 herb for that. Horsetail, aka Equisetum hyemale. This is known as a weed in the Pacific Northwest, which is hilarious to me. Like, people hate horsetail. I love it. I've been able to find it a couple of places in Utah. You'll usually find it along streams, on the stream banks. And I go into this in my online classes on everydayandexperiment.com. I actually do little features of different herbs and all the incredible things that they are good for, along with herbal remedies that every family should know how to make, how to use. Even as far back to, if you've never made tea before, how to make tea. What is a tincture? Why would I get a capsule over a tincture, and things like this. So that's a really great resource for you. But on there, I do have pictures of horsetail in its first year versus its second year. and things you should know. But anyway, so that can be a really, really rich source of silica for the body. And when we have a horsetail tea, for example, then we are taking in that silica, and our body is going to turn it into calcium and put that calcium exactly where it needs to go. So cool. Now, if we have it with a few other herbs that are also high in silica and calcium, they're going to work synergistically together. Again, something I love, love, love about herbs. This is why we like tea blends. You can use single herbs, and sometimes that is the best. That is the best course forward. But often we put certain herbs together, and it just is this incredible thing, more than the sum of its parts. So some of those herbs are chamomile. That's a good like gateway herbal tea. Oat straw, it's very high in silica. Comfrey. Comfrey is amazing. I'm not telling you whether or not to have it internally. I'm just telling you it's full of vitamins and minerals. Just saying. And this is another really great book that you can get on herbalembrace.com. It is Dr. Christopher's herb syllabus. And so you can look up specific herbs and read about them. Yep. So this is just specific. I think the word is a monograph on specific herbs and what nutrients are found in them, what have they most been used for, and there's a couple of recipes in here and whatnot. Anyway, it's got a great one on comfrey that I was just rereading. And then dandelion leaves and roots are really rich in calcium as well. How cool is that? Hawthorn berry, which is well known as protecting the heart and rebuilding the heart. Wonderful. And we've already talked about alfalfa. So there's just a couple of them. There's so many options for getting that silica and that calcium into your diet in a very safe way, in a way that your body is going to know exactly what to do with it, and you're not going to end up with bone spurs somewhere else. So if you want to go down that rabbit hole, looking through the herb syllabus and looking for all your silica rich and calcium rich herbs, you're welcome to. If you want to make your own tea blends, you're welcome to. But let me point you to a few resources that, you don't have to think about, that are some great herbal combinations for this. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so here's my website, herbalembrace.com. And we have Dr. Christopher's original formulas right here. I'm just going to go into the search and write calcium. Okay, so I've got a few options here. So we have the herbal calcium capsules. And what is in this? Horsetail grass, nettle leaf, oat straw herb, and lobelia herb. And I think I've talked about in these before. If not, it's definitely in my online classes. Lobelia basically is an intelligent herb, and when you add it to other combinations, it just makes everything work better. So it's a very cool plant. We always put only tiny amounts in though. And you can watch my classes to understand why. So don't go out and make yourself some lobelia tea. No, watch my classes first. Anyway, so this is a really good one. And obviously all of these herbs, they also have other wonderful things in them. So you're not just boosting your calcium, you're infusing the body with nutrients. Now, the same thing is in a glycerin extract here. Okay, pure vegetable glycerin and distilled water is the base for this. So I always say if a person has any kind of digestive difficulty, they should go with the liquid form, whether that is an extract or a tea. So let me come over to the tea. So there's two options for teas, at least on my website. This is one that I make myself. It's called Cal Mint. And so it's a loose leaf tea. So, and anytime someone is ordering tea for the first time, I do send them a organic cotton little drawstring bag that you can use as a tea bag, because the commercial tea bags often contain microplastics and aluminum staples and things that we really don't want to be seeping in our tea, in our highly absorbable tea water. We don't want to also have these other things. Okay, so, and also for the highest, to get the highest amount of silica and calcium out of a calcium specific tea, the best way to go is to let it steep for up to 8 hours. So I say 4 to 8 hours. If you don't have that long, don't worry about it. But if you do, I highly recommend, making some, put your tea on before you go to bed, wake up and drink it, or start it in the morning, have some at lunch. And if you need to reheat it, that's fine. You can also simmer it very, very gently to make that happen faster. So mine is very similar. So it has the horsetail, the nettle leaf, the oat straw, and lobelia. And then I also have spearmint and chamomile. So these both have some calcium as well as other benefits to them, but also gives it just a little more of a nice flavor. So there's one more that I want to show you here. Oh, and there is a kid's version. So this is the Kid E Calc extract here. So this one, instead of lobelia, has valerian root. So that's interesting. That tends to be a very calming herb. And again, it's in glycerin, so totally safe for kids. I really like that they have so many options in glycerin for those of us who don't really want to be consuming a lot of alcohol. I do think there is a time and a place for alcohol tinctures, and I do talk about that in my online class. But for something that you're like giving to your kid 3 to 5 times a day, it's really nice to have a good strength glycerin extract instead of an alcohol one. Okay, so you will see here. You can also get Dr. Christopher's Calc tea with comfrey powder. So that would be to put in a capsule. But this is if you want to get a lot of tea at once, and if you are comfortable with the ingredients in this formula, which I cannot tell you to use internally, but I can tell you that it is available. This horsetail, comfrey root, oat straw, and lobelia herb. Okay, so we're using the comfrey instead of the nettles in this case. Comfrey is much, much, much higher in calcium, even the nettles. And I think nettles is the one that probably gets talked about the most, because it's just a great herb. We've talked about it so many times on here. Okay, so that's where I wanted to go with this today. If you wanted to look at those books I mentioned, there's some great ones here. So the herb syllabus here is the one I was referring to if you want to just start reading specifics about certain herbs. Yeah, I can't sell Eat to Live to you, but these other great ones are here. So I'm gonna stop the share, check on my notes, check on comments. Okay. Oh, Mandy's here. She says she loves Calmint. Yay! Yeah, it's a really subtle tea. It's a subtlety tea. I did start adding just a little more spearmint than I had in past years. So if you tried it like a year ago, and you were like, oh, this doesn't have enough flavor, I did make it a little more exciting, but it's still a very subtle tea. So often I will mix like a really nice flavored tea, like my ruby red tea. My kids just love it. They go crazy for it. Like if I make it and I don't drink it, like save some for myself, I won't get any. But the really cool thing is that my 9-year-old daughter has decided that she's going to be our tea maker, which is fabulous because I am 33 weeks pregnant and I'm having my prenatal tea at least a quart a day every day. And so now she's making it for me. Isn't that the cutest? But anyway, so great learning opportunities. But so if I have like a really flavorful tea and I want to sneak in something more nutritional, like the Nourish tea or the Calmint tea, I'll do like half and half. So I'll do, if I'm making a 1/2 gallon jar, I'll do 2 tablespoons of ruby red and I'll do 2 tablespoons of calcium, add my hot water, and they'll still guzzle it. So that's another like mom tip, Master Herbalist mom tip. Oh, Rebecca says she's been enjoying my calcium tea as well. Does alfalfa help the liver? Yeah. Yeah. Because again, it's super nourishing and it's super alkalizing for the body. And yet it's totally like safe. Like it's a extremely gentle cleanser. And so along with that, there'll be a little bit of like blood purification, liver purification, but not so strong that you need to like watch out what you're combining it with. It's just all around an incredibly healing herb. And I definitely have a spotlight on that in my online classes as well. Like there's just so much to say about alfalfa. Okay, cool. So I think I've caught up on comments on questions. If I missed you, like say it again. I'm gonna have a little more of my tea. Okay, so let's bring this back. I should have done this at the beginning. But let's bring this back specifically to women in their childbearing year. So what are some of the common signs of calcium deficiency in a pregnant woman? And tell me in the comments if you've ever had any of these while you were pregnant, or shortly after you were pregnant. Okay, oral health tends to go downhill if we're not getting enough calcium, or if we have a serious family history and personal backlog of calcium balance in the body. Hello. So like tooth decay, right? That's a big one. And another one is muscle cramps. So like Charlie horses. Okay. If you're starting to have some tooth pain, or if you're starting to get Charlie horses, it's a good sign that your body is saying, I need more calcium. Okay. So if you're just joining me now, go back to the beginning of the video and and watch and see what those great sources of calcium can be for you, and what you may need to start avoiding in order to keep that calcium in your body and have it go where it needs to go. So those are like the two really big ones. Obviously a lot of women who've had a lot of kids, but even who haven't, like end up with this osteoporosis and hip fractures and other bone fractures later in life. And what we're often told, I mean, even I've been told this, and I'm 35, is that, you know, the baby's just going to take, right? It's going to take that calcium, and it's taking it from you. And so if you're not getting enough in, you're going to start having those signs of deficiency. Now, likely your baby is going to be fine, but also, you know, there is believed to be a correlation now of poor jaw development, even in babies at birth, due to this like chronic calcium deficiency that so many of us, at least in the Western world and in the United States, are now facing. And when that jaw is underdeveloped, now we have issues of our wisdom teeth not fitting properly. We have the issue of a recessed jaw, often associated with tongue tie and oral restrictions, which leads to difficulty nursing and leads to difficulty breathing. It leads to mouth breathing, which is very, very detrimental to your overall health, and I think social health, honestly. And so many other things. Another big one, yeah, Charlie horses, lost bone mass in my teeth. Yeah. And another big one is nervous system problems. So calcium, again, in its wholesome form, is essential for having a calm nervous system, as well as some other things, right? Like magnesium and our other minerals and nutrients. We need them all. And again, that's why I'm saying don't run out and get a calcium pill. Don't run out and get a vitamin D pill. Run out and get an herbal tea. In my opinion, something like a magnesium lotion is fine, because your skin can just decide whether or not it wants that magnesium. The same with an Epsom salt bath, I think is highly beneficial. Tell me in the comments if you feel calmer after an Epsom salt bath. Because again, we're restoring nutrients and we're restoring hydration and those minerals. And it's so, so, so important for so many of our body's processes. So that's, topically, that is one of those few times where I'm like, the elemental or inorganic version of it, like I'm okay with that. Yeah. So anyway, often if I feel like I'm getting really stressed out or really amped up or starting to have a headache, having a tea of calcium rich herbs or silica rich herbs is very, very helpful. So that's something to think about if you're someone who is prone to nervous system issues, especially, the anxiety kind of end of it, the anxiety, the panic, the high stress kind of end of it. If you tend towards depression and have calcium tea, is it going to send you closer to depression? I don't think so. It's just generally going to be calming. But maybe you want to add a little ginger to your calcium tea or lemon juice or something that is also a bit of an energizing boost kind of an herb or food. Anyway, so those are kind of the common indications during pregnancy, for example, that you need to start boosting your silica and calcium intake a little bit. Now, when we are using our fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes, and our herbs, is it possible to get too much calcium in our body? Nope. Because again, this is the beautiful thing. Our body knows what to do with it. So really the worst you can do, unless you are like seriously abusing it, like if you made a really concentrated tea and put it in an IV, I would not recommend that. Like barring like actual abuse of the herbs, like just drinking, let's say you had a quart of calcium tea a day, or you were taking, here, I've even got some right here. All right, because I use this for myself, because again, I'm starting with a pretty serious negative calcium balance ancestrally. So if I were taking this like 5 squirts 5 times a day, that's what I would do if I had just broken a bone, for example, among other things. The worst that would happen would be that I spent a lot of money on herbs and I didn't actually need that much. But I'm not going to suddenly cause a side effect or an after effect. Again, always barring some kind of unique individual allergy to a given herb. There's always that possibility. But so if you've never used a glycerin extract before, it's really easy. Ta-da! And this one, it like just tastes like glycerin. It doesn't have a strong flavor. There's no cayenne in this one. That's always fun. Okay. All right. So with the last few minutes, again, I always want to talk about so much more. But I want to come back around to sugar. Now, we talked about sugar leaches calcium from the bones, and what happens so often during pregnancy, or even just those hormonal fluctuations we may experience, like during puberty, during every menstrual cycle, during menopause. Our hormones are going to go crazy if we're not living a certain way, or if we have some healing to do, we'll say. Some of us are lucky that we inherit a lot more work to do, and some of us not so much. We just kind of have our own work to do, and it's all part of the journey. And we can just giggle about it, and we can come together and chat about it here. Anyways, I just totally lost my train of thought. Okay, but talking about sugar. So Sugar cravings. Oh yes, hormones. Okay, so it's especially hard during these times that I just listed to lay off the sugar, right? We start craving comfort foods. We start craving sugary foods. So what are some things that help us deal with those sugar cravings? You can go back and watch a video I did. I'm blanking on what it's called again. It's happening a lot. I am 33 weeks pregnant, so I just get to laugh when my brain just like totally gets wiped clean. Okay. So where was it here? I do have a past video that I did. It's called Ask an Herbalist Q&A for dental health. That I will add to the guide. And if you're on YouTube, you can just go find it on my channel. But I do talk about, I think it's in my preparing for a healthy pregnancy video, and things like this, that the more that you do your cleansing and renourishment, before you even get pregnant, the less cravings you will have. At least that was my experience. Now, is that going to be 100%, 1000%, always? There's always going to be other factors here, right? The stress and your environment and whatever. But I have found that as I've really cleaned things up, and I stopped the sugar, and I did my candida cleanse and my leaky gut protocol way before I got pregnant. And so I wasn't craving as much sugar, and I was able to just say, oh, I kind of want something sweet. I'm going to go eat an apple. And I would satisfy it, right? These fresh fruits are so satisfying. And as long as we chew them for a long time, chew it as much as you can before you swallow, then if you have any issues with blood sugar regulation or spiking, that pretty much takes care of it. Another really great tool is apple cider vinegar. It can you can use it as a splash in some water with some raw honey or not. And I really recommend that and benefit from it, especially during pregnancy when your digestion is like kind of wonky. About 15 minutes before a meal, or when you remember, it's okay. And that can really help stimulate those digestive juices, but it also reduces sugar cravings. And another thing that it does is if you, let's say you did go to Aunt Helen's cookie party and you wanted to participate and you had some things that normally you wouldn't have, you had a little bit of a sugar bomb going on, having that apple cider vinegar drink can actually help clear up that like yuck that you may feel. I call it a sugar hangover. So it helps with a sugar hangover. Okay. So that's just, some of those things. So here's the thing though, those sugar cravings are happening because your body is amazing and it is so accommodating. It wants you to be comfortable. It wants you to be healthy, and it's going to help you adapt to whatever you're putting in and whatever you're surrounding yourself with. Sometimes we don't like those adaptations, but it's doing its best. And so one of the ways that it does that is if you're having a lot of sugar and also dairy and alcohol, your gut likely has a very high ratio of that yeast, Candida albicans. Now, if you've had any sort of pharmaceutical use or, really like hard drug use as well, but as well as antibiotics, especially antibiotics, even if it's colloidal silver, we've talked about this a lot. If you've had anything that is wiping out your gut microflora, Candida albicans is one of the strongest things in there, and it does not get wiped out. And so now you have this empty space and some Candida. And the body wants to fill empty space. The body doesn't like empty space. So that candida is going to reproduce itself, fill up that space. And again, it exists because it's there to help you digest excessive sugar, dairy, and alcohol. So if you think you're going to take some pharmaceutical or take some herb that is just going to wipe out the candida, just kill it dead, and you're never going to have problems anymore, you're in for a not so fun surprise, because while that may give you a short-term benefit, if you keep eating a high sugar, high alcohol, high dairy diet, it's going to come back, because how else are you going to digest your sugar, your dairy, and your alcohol? Okay, your body is trying to meet your needs. It's trying to keep you alive. Okay, so again, now we have this candida overgrowth. And some of the symptoms of candida overgrowth, I mean, it can look like almost any other disease out there. And there's a new diagnosis every minute, right? There's a new name for a condition every minute. And candida can be the source of many or most of those. And so now we have this condition where our gut flora is full of primarily Candida albicans. We start to have brain fog. We start to have sore joints. We start to have hair loss. All kinds of things start getting out of whack. And there's this crazy thing that happens when Candida realizes, I know, but you know, like they're at some level, they're these little organisms, right? They're this yeast, it's alive. So, hey, and so when it is in that situation where there is high concentration of Candida, it actually changes its morphology. It grows these little tails, and those little tails whip holes in the intestinal lining. And that is one of the reasons that we end up with leaky gut. And so again, we just kill off the Candida. Okay, cool. What's going to digest our diet that we haven't changed? But we also haven't put the plugs in all those little holes. And so what's going to happen? Anything that originally would be kept inside the stomach and the intestinal walls and prevented from entering the bloodstream, some of those things now can enter, things that are not meant to be in the bloodstream. And so that is one of the main causes of allergies, because now we have foreign particles or proteins that were never meant to be in the bloodstream. They're in the bloodstream, and the body's like, hold up, what is this? We need to mark it as an invader, and we need to freak out whenever we consume it. Because again, it's trying to save your life. Saying, don't eat this because it's getting in my bloodstream. Well, this is the cool thing about the Candida Cleanse gut reset protocol that I offer, because not only are we rebalancing the gut microflora, we do a little bit of like killing off the Candida, but it's a little bit, it's just enough, because we still need a little bit of it in there. But also we are healing that damaged lining. So, and then we are repopulating with all sorts of great probiotic and prebiotic foods. And so often by doing this protocol, we're resolving leaky gut, we're resolving Candida overgrowth, and so many of these crazy symptoms that manifest themselves as if there's some other new disease, or like you have 15 diseases and you need a prescription for each one. Often a lot or all of those will just go away. And so what a lot of Dr. Christopher's students have done as they've gone on to have their own clinics, or, you know, in my case, I'm a coach, I'm an educator. I can't have a clinic in my state. What they've gone on to do is say, hey, this is the foundational program that we want to lead you through, because you do this and so many things will get better. And then we see what else actually needs to be done, because we've eliminated this thing masquerading as all these other problems. It was really just you needed to heal your gut and reset your gut. So today is the last day that I am running this special thing that I am running. So let me share my screen for that. I'm running overtime again. You know I do this. So when you go to my website right now, this is the homepage for my website. Okay, so this is my limited time only 18-day gut reset protocol. I've talked about in previous masterclasses. This is the shortest one I've ever seen. This is the only one I've ever seen that addresses both layers, of the candida and of the leaky gut. And if you're not sure whether you have a candida overgrowth problem, part of what I offer in this as part of the you'll see here, it's 1 60-minute Zoom consult and 2 30-minute check-ins. As part of that, you have a whole checklist that you go through that will tell us, do you have a candida problem or not? I've actually never seen anyone who filled out that survey and didn't have a strong indication that this would be beneficial for them. The only time was when someone filled it out a second time after already having done the cleanse. And she hadn't done like the second sort of the maintenance part of the program. And so we were able to just fine tune a couple things. And she was able to get the rest of the healing that she was hoping for. Anyway, so like I said, even if you don't think you have a candida overgrowth problem, this is a very gentle and safe protocol. And it can even be done if you are pregnant. It can even be done if you are breastfeeding, although that one actually has a few modifications to do. And it can even be done if you are on other pharmaceutical drugs. Now, I cannot advise you on what to do or not to do with your drugs while you are working with me. But, I do have a sense of and resources for what kinds of herbs would interact with certain kinds of drugs. This program really doesn't have any that would do that. The only thing, we use a lot of slippery elm. And the only issue, so to speak, is that you just need to space it out from when you're taking your pharmaceutical, because because slippery elm is really good at expelling poison from the body. And so if you take encapsulated poison and then have your slippery elm, it's just going to pull your drug right out. So, but again, it's just a matter of timing. So it's totally customizable. It's totally adaptable to whatever's going on in your life. Highly recommend this program. I've done it. And I've done it with several people, and a lot of my peers have done it with many people. So anyway, so what else do you get in this? Okay, so you get 3 consults with me. The entire supplement kit is included, so all of the herbs you would need will be delivered to your door. You'll also get a schedule for when to take them. You'll get a meal plan. You'll get recipes. You'll have email and text access to me, like at a VIP level. And you'll get 1 month of free access to my online classes. So you can get a little taste of what those are like. Again, it's an 18-day program. And then, the maintenance thereafter, it's not one of these where like you can't have fruit or wheat for the rest of your life. Like if there are so many candida meal plans out there that are like that. And I know people who've been on them for years and they don't get better. They just have to live a certain way to have it not flare up. So basically all they're doing is starving the candida for a time. But this one actually gets to that healing. Now, is it going to make unwholesome foods good for you? No, sorry to say. When you start healing, you don't get a free pass on, suddenly you can eat all the candy you want. That's kind of not the point. The point is really reteaching your whole body self what is healthy and how great it is to feel well and to keep that going. Okay, so if you have any questions for me, let me know. You can, I'm going to put a link to this here. You don't have to talk to me. You can just sign up. There's a one-time payment. There's a two-time payment. And again, it has all those things included. This is normally only part of my 6-session full coaching package. I was just offering this for a week. So if you want to grab this in isolation of that, save a little money, get your feet wet, see if you like working with me, this is a great opportunity to do that. If you have any questions about it, put them in the comments, send me a message. I'm very happy to answer your questions. So I've tried to put this together in a way that keeps it very simple and gives you a high level of support, because while it is relatively simple, it's a pretty straightforward program, but it is short and it is intense. And so, you know, when I was doing it for myself, I felt like I needed some support, like I needed people to talk to. I needed to ask questions of my mentors. And so I want to provide that for you, to really enable that success. Because again, this is a wonderful launch pad for any other healing that needs doing. So, okay, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to see if there are any new questions. Mandy keeps sending the overwhelmed face. All right, I'm going to give you one more minute to type any questions you have. Otherwise, again, you know where to find me. If you're on YouTube and you don't know where to find me, you can either come and join our group. The link is in the description. Or if you want to, you can just go to my website, which is also in the description, everydayandexperiment.com, and you can fill out the contact form there. Just make sure you check your spam folder, because sometimes people send me contact requests and I'll write them back, and I'll never get anything responded. And I think it's because it ended up in their spam folder. So, okay, you're welcome. Okay, you want me to restate the foods high in calcium? So this is just one list. I mean, I'm sure Google has some excellent infomercials or whatever they're called, infographics out there. But this is just Dr. Fuhrman's list: green vegetables, beans, tofu, sesame seeds, and oranges. And then we went through all the herbs that are high in calcium as well. And one thing we didn't talk about is vitamin D in mushrooms. When we were doing our master seminar and Dr. Christopher Hobbs was there, he's an expert mycologist. He's a mushroom guy. He recommended putting mushrooms in the sun for a couple of hours before you cook them. Excuse me. And this would increase the available vitamin D that you can then get in your body. The other thing that I do teach my clients is safe sun exposure. I used to get burned at the drop of a hat. I'm a very fair-skinned person, but now I live in Utah and I'm a farmer and I'm out in the sun frequently. I tend to wear a hat on my face for most of the time that I'm out there. But I do try to expose my skin in very specific ways to get that vitamin D. And there's this great app. If I can't find it quickly, I'll just I'll put a link to it. It's just a free app that tells you what time solar noon is for your location. Okay, I'll put it in the guide when I find it, so that you can actually do a specific program where you're going out at solar noon and you're spending a small amount of time exposing as much of your skin as you can to the sun. Unfortunately, the most beneficial place to get that sun is actually your torso, which for many of us women who who don't walk around in bikinis all the time, we tend to not get the sun there. And so, you know, you can see how creative you can get in terms of doing some safe sunbathing. But anyway, this is something I teach my clients, that you're gradually increasing your exposure. And so that you don't get burned, but you're still getting that benefit. And actually, the cool thing about this app is it will, like, if you give it all of your biometrics, which I'm not like a super big fan of, but if you're into that, you can give it all your biometrics, just for like privacy reasons. It's fine. That's just my thing. But if you give that info to it, and then you like actually record your sun sessions, it will actually tell you how much vitamin D you produced that day. And it will help you understand like how far through the winter you still have a good vitamin D store. So that's a really cool thing. When you load up in the summer, it can actually carry you through the winter. So this whole like, oh no, it's winter and I can't get enough vitamin D from the sun, what am I going to do? I mean, actually, if you play the game right, you can store it up and be just fine. So there's a few more things on vitamin D. Again, watercress and alfalfa as well. Okay, we're gonna wrap this up. It's been a long one. So this has been fun doing these master classes. I am gonna stop for the year. So thank you for those of you who joined me. Thank you for those of you who are watching the replays on YouTube or in the guide section of the Herb Powered Pregnancy. I would just love to help as many people as I can. Unfortunately, there's only so much information that I can give like generically, right? Like sorting through what you specifically need to do. This is like my jam. Could be okay, because remember, like I was a chemical engineer, a process optimizing engineer. Like I am all about looking at a problem or a situation and figuring out what is the best strategy forward. And to be able to do that with you and figure out a plan that works well for your life is like a fun, it's fun for me. And I love watching, you know, as people get better and as they heal and as they learn and as things really fall into place and they understand, and can, you know, maintain living some of these principles, and just like watching their life like explode in vibrancy is just like the coolest reward ever. So again, you can still find me in this group, but I'm going to stop the master classes for now. I've got a baby coming in 7 weeks. We're trying to get a house up. So I'm going to kind of shift my focus over a little bit, but I'm still here for you. You can still go to my website and schedule time with me. You can still send me messages. And I hope you will join me for that gut reset. Again, if you haven't done it yet, there's great things in store for you. And you can read some of the testimonials on my website to see some of the benefits people have had. So, okay, I've said I'm going to wrap up. I'm wrapping up now. I'll see you all around. Thank you. Bye.